So today we're going to be talking about mixes, and this little lesson can be extremely helpful because mixes can make or break services for you. They can be really super annoying, or they can be like perfect, and really you can engage in the moment better when they're really good. So I was just going to give you some tips and tricks about how to adjust your in-ear monitors to make them work best for you. So in a keys player's ears, each instrument is going to have a little bit different, but for a keys player, basically what I go for is I try to have an even mix of everything, because if you're missing like something like bass, then it's going to sound super empty. If you're missing something like electric guitar, then you're going to miss like really cool riffs and stuff that kind of keeps you on track with where you're at in the song. So normally what I do is I kind of keep everything even, but the things I have that I really watch for is I make sure that electric guitar is pretty high up in my mix, not only so that I can hear kind of those parts that I'm used to hearing when I listen to the track, but also to make sure I'm not getting in the way. So sometimes if we're playing and we're kind of in this moment instrumental, electric guitar starts playing something, I don't want to start playing a little riff here and him playing a riff there and it's clashing. That will happen if you don't have enough electric guitar in your ears. Another thing that I have a fair amount of is bass. And that way, if I'm doing a lot of low stuff, some songs we have a lot of low notes. If we're in an instrumental, I need to be able to hear what he's doing, so I can just play what we call diamonds, just holding each one until you switch to the next number, And that way I make sure that I'm not having to, I'm not banging out chords while he's trying to do a bunch of stuff on his bass. So you don't want to get over top of anybody, but you want to make sure everything is together. So if I have enough electric guitar and I have enough bass and neither one of them are doing a whole lot, I know I can fill in that gap on keys. So I can have enough bass, I can have enough high notes, have enough stuff going on as far as motifs and stuff like that. So that's one of the things that I watch for. Now, if you're adjusting your mix, sometimes you'll notice you'll adjust these things and you'll be playing at rehearsal and everything just sounds muddy. It's like nothing is clear. You can't really hear anything super, like I can hear what the electric's doing, but I can't hear exactly the notes he's playing. I can hear the singers, but I can't hear exactly what they're singing. And if that happens, some tips and tricks to get rid of that muddiness in your ears is check the volume of the pads. So if you're playing on keys and the pads player is doing his thing, you want to check and make sure you don't have too much pads, because pads is like the number one thing to make your mix muddy. And so bring down those pads. You don't really need pads in your ears. You kind of know they're there. And if you decide to drop out, then you'll be able to hear them fine. And you'll be able to hear what the moment is, like what's happening if you need to come back in. So I bring pads pretty low in my ears. I don't want them in there. And then bass is like a fine line. Like you want bass, but you don't want a lot of bass. You just want just enough. So if your mix is muddy, you've already turned down pads, check your bass line and make sure, just bring it down just a little bit and see if that helps. The last thing is drums. What I do is I keep all of the drums down because I can hear the drums over top of my mix. I keep all the drums down and I push the overhead up. And that just takes care of all the drums at once. I push it up so that I can have little drums in my ears, but mostly I can hear it outside of my mix. I don't have my master volume all the way up. I usually have it at about 50% so that I can kind of hear what's going on outside of my mix and what's inside of my mix. Now, if your mix isn't working, there's two scenarios. So one, if your mix isn't working at rehearsal, something to think about there is you'll be playing and your mix isn't working, so you got to check, make sure you have everything on your app going. But if your app is working and you still can't hear, your mix isn't working at all, then what you're going to do is you're going to go over to your, I don't know, it looks like a box, and it has two knobs. One is the volume and one is threshold, I think it is. And so I turn mine all the way up, because if you don't, that makes your mix sound really weird. And so I turn it all the way up, and then I just turn my volume back. So make sure you turn down your volume before you turn up your threshold, because you'll bust in your drum like that. So that's the next thing to check. If that's still not working, check your plugs. Make sure that your headphones are plugged in. Make sure that your box is all plugged in. And if that's still not working, then you're going to tell your team lead, and they can get you all hooked up. Now, if you're in service, you just need to survive, because you're not going to be able to check all this stuff. You can't check, all your plugs. You can't check your threshold. Sometimes you're playing, you can't do anything. So the best way to survive during a service, if your mix isn't working, is just take a headphone out. If you take a headphone out, you can hear kind of what's going on, but you do need to kind of, in some way, probably if I was on keys and my mix stopped working, I would probably be very, very careful, because you can't hear MD talking to you to tell you where to switch and what to do. So I might just play common tones in that case. I wouldn't do any parts if my mix wasn't working. That's probably how to best get through a service. And so hopefully that helps in the future.